Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome in, everyone. Welcome into Daily Wolves. As always, I am your host, Chris, and I'm accompanied today by James. Welcome back, James. I missed you.
Yes, thank you. It's been a while. Need to get back into the groove, so yeah.
Yeah, you're just busy living the high life on Wolves' upbeat spirit that we've got right now. I think that's all that it is.
Yeah, no, we're great form now. I think 3 wins from 4, so yeah, kind of back in our groove now.
Yeah. I was super. There was a lot of debate going into this. Well, as always, lots of debate going into this weekend about how we'd fare against Bournemouth. I was actually feeling a little bit optimistic. I predicted 2-1. I'm just as happy with a 1-0 and a clean sheet. I mean, that's even better, to be honest. Going back to keeping another clean sheet is outstanding, especially with Agbadou out injured. That's even better than I could have imagined. But we are, of course, reacting to a beautiful away victory at Bournemouth, and we're going to have them again soon in the Cup. So let's hope we can do the double, because that would be nice. But as for when the starting lineups came out, James, there was a lot of debate, I think, beforehand about who was going to start up, particularly up front, because we'd seen Minetsi come in a couple of times as that kind of false nine, and Larsson recovering from injury. And what did you make of the lineup with Minetsi starting essentially up front? It wasn't even a false nine. It was basically just like a number 9.
Yeah, I was pretty optimistic after seeing him come on against Liverpool. I think it was quite interesting because, we signed him as a defensive midfielder back in France. But yeah, after watching him against Liverpool, he was great positioning. He'd get into spaces all the time. He'd always be in the right spot. But it's very obvious to see he's not trained to put the ball in the back of the net. So I was pretty excited to see what he could come up with. And again, he did the exact same against Liverpool. He'd get in the spots, but it was the final product, really.
Yeah, I was chatting in one of the earlier episodes in the previous week saying after the Liverpool match, if he could just stay on side and if he could just put the ball in that net, he'd be an outstanding striker, because those are the weaknesses. But then, like you say, he's not. That's technically not why we bought him, but he's doing a good job of filling in, I think, while because not only Larsson is recovering from injury, but Gedge has missed out the last game or two because he is also apparently picked up a small knock as well. And Hwang obviously already out. So I suppose it's just square pegs in round hole for a moment. But he's actually doing. I think he's been getting a little bit of stick for all these because he could have had probably six goals in his first 2 games or something. But I think the fact he's getting in those positions as a defensive midfielder is okay.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it kind of shows to our squad depth at the moment as well. Like you would have looked 2 months ago at our squad like really thin, and after this transfer window, I know we give Jeff a lot of stick, but it is picking up a little bit, and it's quite obvious to see that our squad's kind of getting there now.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it sounds a little bit cheesy, but Bellegarde has almost become like a new signing because he's out of the blue just become this outstanding central midfielder, which we'll get onto, I think, some of his performances or the player performances during the game. But so, yeah, I was kind of happy to see Minetsi up front, even though, he's not a striker, just because I think he does at least puts himself about and puts the centre-backs under pressure, because he's a big guy and he can move at speed. So at least he does make them think about where he's going to be and create opportunities for other people to move into space behind him, because they've always got to be aware of his presence. So overall, that was fine. Bueno filling in for Agbadou, I think we kind of expected that to be the case as well. And outside of that, it was pretty much the standard regulars that we've been expecting. And then after kickoff, though, what did you make of the first half? I mean, there was most of the big incidents kind of happened in the first half, if we go a little bit in order. But as a whole, though, what did you make of the first half?
Yeah, first half I would have said extremely positive. I mean, we absolutely went for that game, and I think it's clear after second half of Liverpool we were full of confidence. We didn't get bullied by them. We were very our wing backs really pushed up high and wide and really went for it. And I was really happy to see that. I hate it when we kind of are really naive and sit back and just kind of try and absorb pressure for a bit and don't concede for the first half an hour. But we didn't do that, which I was really glad to see.
Yeah, I mean, Vitor spoke recently in a couple of press conferences about the fact that he's not going to these, like for Liverpool, he wasn't going for a draw or shut up shop. He wanted to compete and try and win the game. And the same with Bournemouth. And he's mentioned how he feels that the team can compete with anyone. And to be honest, it just makes me so happy, because all the time under O'Neill, we were just hearing how, the squad isn't good enough, or like we've got a tough battle ahead of us, and these are strong opponents. And it always felt like we were being spoken of as an underdog rather than, and we had a similar thing with Lopetegui in his last few months as well, always moaning that the players weren't good enough and this squad isn't good enough to compete. And it must it must get you down as a player and almost get you questioning things, or just make morale a bit low. I can't, I mean, I'm just guessing, but it feels nice to have someone talking about the fact that we can compete and we should be going there to try and get 3 points.
Yeah, I think it was shown kind of by the aftermath of some games, especially like West Ham and Ipswich, showing the confidence obviously wasn't there for the team. And after the games, their heads were completely gone. But I totally agree in press conferences where he's saying how he thinks we've got some of the best players in the league, which I agree to some extent, with like the likes of Cunha and Aït-Nouri. And it is great to see a manager actually back our players for once and give them confidence. It's been a while since that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think first half, I think even before the sending off, it was a fairly competitive game. I thought Bournemouth did as you'd expect the first few minutes, first 5-10 minutes, they kind of came at us a little bit more, but then it felt like we were getting into the game. We had the clearer chances. Semedo hit the post. We had a couple of good opportunities early on. And so I think even at 11 versus 11, we were in contention to push on to try and take the 3 points. But then obviously the sending off was a massive point in the game. I've got my opinions on what I think of that, but what did you make of the call and then the VAR? Because obviously initially it's a yellow card and then VAR have stepped in. What did you make of the red card?
I think it's one of those. It could have gone either way. I think if it wasn't sent off, the Wolves fans would be in uproar. If it was, obviously the Bournemouth fans were in uproar. It was obviously high, but it wasn't intentional, because you could see he went for the ball. He kind of bounced off the top of the ball and went into the shin of Aït-Nouri, I think it was. And it wasn't intentional. He was looking at the ball. He wasn't trying to be dangerous in any way. But at the same time, it is high, and those are the laws. If it's a high tackle, and it's just, it could have gone either way. And I think people are kind of overreacting a little bit about it. Like, lots of people are saying, "Oh, it's crazy decision." I don't think it's that crazy. Might be my Wolves bias coming out, but I think it 50-50 could have gone either way.
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy. I personally think it was, because you kind of answered a little bit yourself. It's in the law, in the letters of the game, it is a red card because he's over the ball. It's like above the ankle. It's a high tackle, and he's virtually off the ground. Now you mentioned intent, which is really interesting, because I've refereed in other sports, and the rule is, in a lot of circumstances, you don't judge on intent. Intent doesn't come into it, because then you're getting into opinion. You can't make a call on intent because you don't know if someone intended. Like, you can guess, but that is your opinion as to whether someone intended to do something. That's not a factual circumstance. So all you can go in is initiation and impact, like who initiated and what was the impact. So that's generally how it would go. And so I think based on that, he didn't need to lunge in the way he did, and he's gone by laws of the book. He's gone over the ball, he hasn't got it, and he's gone in to the leg with the studs. So I think I would be similarly frustrated if it was flipped. Not going to deny that, but I think by the letters of the rule book, it is in the modern game fairly standard sending off, in my personal opinion, with my intent.
Yeah, it could have gone either way. I mean, you see them every week now, and it's like, I do sort of feel bad for the referees at some point, because I think whatever decision they make, it's just gonna cause uproar, and then an apology will come out and back. And it's just they need to kind of rewrite the rules a little bit and kind of get exacts for them instead of people kind of not knowing what's going on.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But I mean, it's a tricky one. But I think, in this day and age, I think it is a pretty clear card. And it was interesting that VAR stepped in. But then again, we've had so many decisions go against us over the previous season or two. And I mean, literally only last week, it felt like we were playing 12 men. So I will take it. But as I say, I think we would have been in contention at the very least for a draw, if not the win, even without the sending off. Obviously, you have no idea what's going to happen. But as I said, we were having the clearer chances at that point. So I feel like it wouldn't necessarily have made a massive, massive impact on the game. Then before we move on to the goal, because we're still in the first half, I will just take a moment to share a message from one of our mutual friends.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimize your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN 2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Don't settle, James, because you're unique. All right, I just wanted to say that just in case you didn't know.
Thanks.
So after that, shortly, you're welcome. And everyone out there, you're all unique. Shortly after that, though, the goal came, and it was that man again. 4 goals in 4 games. I mean, happy days. What did you talk me through the goal from your perspective?
Yeah, huge relief. We had to be the ones to kind of get there first, get that first goal in, and then it wasn't plain sailing from there, but we were in a very comfortable position from then on. And it was we did capitalise on Bournemouth kind of not being prepared enough. It was, I think, 5 minutes after the red card, so they were all a bit shaken and not really in shape. And it was kind of uncharacteristic defensive error from them, which you don't see many of this season, as one of their centre-backs and another player went to head the ball, missed, and it just falls to the guy that you don't want it to, doesn't it? And he wasn't going to miss from there. 4 and 4, just I was over the moon when he scored, just because we had to be the people to score first after that red card.
Yeah, the ball comes in from Semedo, and it looks like it's not going to get anywhere because it goes past like 2 Bournemouth heads, like you say. At least one of them seemed to go for it, another one seems to leave it. It just kind of, and Cunha looked almost surprised that it came to him. The initial touch, it almost kind of went underneath his like foot. He almost tripped over it, and then managed to get himself together. And as the keeper's rushing out, manages to lift it over him. You know, there was no panic. He just calmly slotted it high enough that it beat the keeper. And I suppose that's the form he's in, and that's the difference he makes. And that's why we're so fortunate that he's staying at least till the summer, because we all know that's probably the time he's going to move on. But yeah, it was delightful. Like you say, I think it was that so soon after the sending off, because I feel like, they were probably still a little bit shell shocked. And then they made some changes to rejig the formation shortly after that. But huge turning point. And it was interesting that I think you're right. We didn't look for the rest of the first half and even throughout the second, whilst we had some opportunities and I think we should have put stuff to bed much earlier because I'm sure we'll talk about some of the other chances. We never really felt a threat. I don't think Sarah had to make really any particularly massive stops or anything. It was, I don't know about you though, I was highly frustrated when Gomez picked up that yellow right at the end of the first half because he just can't resist. He can't resist getting stuck in, even when the guy is running down the touchline with really nowhere to go, just lunging in with one of his classic, I can't quite make it, but I'm just going to go for it anyway tackles. Are you like me? Did you have your head in your hands? I was like, what are you doing?
It's the bookies must hate him because it's yellow card every game. It is vintage Gomez, and I was a bit like, unneeded, isn't it? You just didn't need to do that. But that's what you get when you sign a bulldog like him. You just you know what you're getting yourself into. I think going back to you talking about Son not having much to do, he did have that one save against, I think it was Cliver, which was a great save. It came rushing out really quick, made himself big. But apart from that, I actually can't remember a save he made, not even in the second half. And yeah, I think that's kudos to the defence playing well the whole game. So
yeah, you're right. That was the one moment, and he managed to not draw a penalty after his incidents in the last game against Bournemouth. So that must have been a nice little moment for him as well, to get through with a clean sheet and no penalties after his nightmare last time out. And that was great. I thought it was interesting at half time. So because we mentioned, and then part of the reason I touched on Gomez getting the yellow card was obviously we saw it against Arsenal, where he was asked at half time if he could, if he was good to control himself and stay in the game, not get another yellow, and lo and behold, he gets sent off and it all falls apart. Vitor didn't even give him the chance this time to do that, because right before half time, he gets the yellow card. We're a man up. He's seen how the refereeing can be up and down, and so many people getting booked for random things already in this. I mean, Bueno got booked 4 minutes in, and so Vitor just yanks him off at half time, and Strand Larsson came on for his return. And it was interesting because obviously that meant Minetsi dropped back a bit more into midfield. But what I'm getting at is, and some of the other substitutions we'll touch on to come, it felt like Vitor was a lot more on it with his squad management in this game, in terms of seeing the game out and making the substitutions and using using the squad, the depth that we spoke about as well, even with injuries, to kind of see out this 1-0 win and put out of risk any more yellow card situations that could have caused us trauma.
Yeah, well, I think he's learning, isn't he? It's still a kind of new team for him, and he's just figuring out everyone. And yeah, like you said, I think he's figured out Gomez, which is a pretty big thing to figure out with his kind of lashing out tendencies. But yeah, it is great to see him kind of coming accustomed to the team now. I don't really have much to add to it, because I think he didn't put a foot wrong today. He just made every decision correct. I think it was a bit frustrating seeing us only win 1-0 from the position we were in, but you look back at it now and you think, yeah, he made the right decisions there.
Yeah, now we discussed a little bit before we came on air about Minetsi and Strand Larsson, and I want to move on to that now that we're speaking about him coming on the pitch, particularly because you mentioned how we didn't put the game to bed and get another goal. Now, Minetsi had a huge chance to make it 2-0 when he was about 4 yards out and the ball comes in, and he somehow doesn't even hit the target. And we mentioned he's not a striker, but he's doing, I think, a good job of putting himself about. And then Larsson comes on, and I think actually, first game back from injury, coming into a competitive game, I think he still did quite well. Like, he actually was involved and almost got an assist at one point. I think he was involved in that build-up actually as well, and various moments where he's not always the guy on the end of it, but he is helping the team around him. But there's discussion about him not being good enough to hold the ball up, not necessarily being, even though he scored 7 goals for us and had a couple of assists, not actually doing very well. Minetsi's come in and put himself about, but not putting away chances. Who should we have up front? And is Larsson? Do you think Larsson comes back into the starting lineup next game?
Yeah, I think he does. Just, I really don't think he should get the hate he gets online from some Wolves fans. I don't understand how half of us don't rate him. I think he's absolutely class. His hold-up play may not be brilliant, and I would agree Minetsi is better at it, but he is a complete striker in my eyes. He kind of takes from Harry Kane's book a little bit with dropping deep and getting the ball, creating chances. And I think we're a better team with him. Although Minetsi's done a fantastic job, and it is harsh to drop him. But like you said, he was in that build-up for when Minetsi should have put it in the back of the net. He played it over to the left to Bellegarde, I think it was. And yeah, it was harder to miss and score that chance. I don't know how he dragged it wide. But I think I would say Larsson should start next game. And he does, but now he's got someone to compete with him, and he does need to prove himself. And I think that's going to be a good thing.
Yeah, I love Larsson. Even before all of some of this, debate, because even before he was injured, there was discussion about maybe he needed a break, or I think he arguably did need a break because he played like every minute of every game pretty much prior to the injury, and he did look like maybe some of that injury was fatigue, because he's run himself into the ground in his first Premier League season. But I don't think, when you consider that it is his first season here and so many people struggle coming into the pace of the Premier League, I don't think you can really argue with 7 goals and some assists and the performances he's put in. And I think he does a lot of work off the ball. I know, he's not always, people expect because of his size, he should be holding up the ball more often, and arguably he should. But some of the runs he makes to drag people in different directions as well and open up play, similarly, in a different manner to Minetsi, because he's a different stature, but I still think he does a lot for the team, like you say, to bring other people in and provide opportunities, even if he's not the one putting the ball in the net. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, he is fantastic. I'll say it again. I don't know how he gets the hate he does. He works his socks off, and he obviously has a real passion for playing for the club, and that's what we need. And after a good 2 years of not having a proper striker, because Jimenez because of his injury, Diego Costa, that sort of era, he is so obviously the best striker we've had in a couple of years, and people aren't appreciating that, I don't think.
Yeah, that finish against Tottenham when he made it 2-2 late in the game on his left foot high into the near post was just, fantastic. And he's done some other, and I know he's missed some sitters at points, but again, all strikers do have moments where they'll miss. But again, it's about being in the right place. And more often than not, I think he has scored some, like when he's through 1-on-1 or he's got the opportunity, more often than not, he's put the ball in the net. So I don't think you can argue. I think he is one of the, like you say, I think since Jimenez, he's the best striker we've had. Not that we've had many of them, but I think he is a good all-round forward player, and I think we are better for him. And Gedge has shown that he is a good player, but maybe more of an impact sub or more of a winger on that front three because of the pace he's got. He creates opportunities, but maybe he's not that focal point that someone like Strand Larsson can be.
Yeah, I think that was definitely shown in the Villa win, where Guedes could have had a hat trick that game. It was a bit like Minetsi, he couldn't find the back of the net that game. I think the only other striker I can think about is Kalajic. He had that tiny period where he scored 2 or 3 goals in a few games, but apart from that.
Yeah, what I do think is interesting, because we mentioned squad depth earlier, is when all these change. So in the second half, Larsson comes on because of the quality of the midfielders and their abilities at the moment and the depth there. Minetsi drops back. Bellegarde moved back in basically alongside Andre, and so you've got 3 workhorses kind of there doing. Andre was so much. We'll get onto him, I think, because he was fantastic. Like, he's just getting better and better. But that trio all have so much ability to kind of shift around and support the front 3, and then you've got people on the bench. Boubacar Traore has been on the last couple of benches because he's recovered from injury. We haven't seen him. I'm curious what Vitor makes of him, if he's ever going to get an appearance. But he's so far down the list now when you think about all these people that we've now got coming into play. Does it make you smile? It makes me smile to look at these names and see how that they, in this second half, were all utilised in different ways.
Yeah, I totally agree. It brings back to my point when I was talking about squad depth. You just look at the quality we have in midfield, and it's just, I would say we have some of the best midfielders in the league. Like, they are fantastic, and they did run the show today. especially Andre. And I'll let you start with that because he was unbelievable yesterday.
Yeah, I think many people agree he was like the unsung man of the match. He in that 1-0, and keeping the clean sheet, he is very much that kind of guardian of the back three, isn't he? Just sits in front of them and covers ground to protect everyone, and he's there tracking back if something breaks away. He's often there to mop up. I mean, that moment where late in the game they're driving into the penalty area and he's just strong and just kind of glides his way past and barges the guy. I forgot the name of the opponent. Barges him off the ball, and the celebration he gives because he's so happy to have stopped the attack as the ball runs out of play. I mean, it was just, you can see the fire in his desire just to like deny the opportunity for a cross or anything, and he was doing that throughout. And he doesn't do anything. Well, I say doesn't do anything fancy. There's a few moments where even his passing ability is starting to creep in a little bit more. Some range passes where he's doing some like over the chip through balls and things to people to run onto. But generally, a lot of the time, he's just like, get it, give it, and that's it. Just cleans up and then passes it forward. I don't know if you've got anything more to comment, but that's what I see from him, is just that kind of, I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to guard everyone, and then I'm just going to play it forward and let everyone else do what they need to do.
Yeah, you kind of took the words right out of my mouth there with everything you said. I mean, he is the type of player that just, it's effortless. You don't really look at him after a game and go, oh, Andre was brilliant, because he blends in so well, and he just works it so effortlessly. And yeah, I was going to bring up that tackle at the end where I think it was Brooksy just kind of shoved out of the way and straight to the home fans, just giving it to them. It was just great to see. It's just what you want to see from a player.
Yeah. What I am curious about is if you're there. I can't talk today. Curious about is if you've made any, because we spoke about squad depth and people coming in to cover yellow cards and see out the game. We saw the debut of Jiga in the 73rd minute come on for Bueno, who'd been on a yellow card for most of the game, and I was thinking, is he gonna creep on? Is he gonna help? Like, because I was worried about that yellow card all game. Did you have any thoughts on? Did you watch him closely? I mean, he didn't have very long in the game, but it was his debut. I mean, it's the first we've seen of him.
Yeah, I didn't really see much of him. I saw a few highlights of him back at Red Star, and he looks versatile, quick. He looks great for a high pressing team who play high, which is what Pereira is trying to integrate into this team, because he can track back so quickly. I mean, with people like Bueno, he's not got the pace on him really. And I would say I was worried when Bueno was starting today, but he actually had a pretty good performance, which kudos to him. But yeah, he I didn't see much of him in the game, but he obviously didn't put a foot wrong, because there's nothing that comes to mind that I think, oh, he should have done this, should have done that. So I think that's a positive we can take from it.
Yeah, I think he did okay when he finally got on the pitch, because there was some confusion over his substitution, because apparently he hadn't taped over his wedding ring or something, and then they had to delay getting him on. I mean, he's learnt a lesson there, and I'm sure Vitor he's probably got told off for that one, for delaying the sub. But there was one moment where the ball kind of bounced awkwardly and he flailed a leg at it, and Bournemouth almost got through, but Totti mopped up and he chased back to kind of cover his mistake. But for the most part, from what I could see, he was kind of, there was a moment where, he threw himself down to block a cross at the touchline, and generally he did all right. I think in the short space of time, he went straight into Buena's spot. I was curious if, for example, maybe Doc or Totti Doc was going to shift into the middle and he might have gone to the right. I was curious if he was just going to go straight into the same spot, and he did cover that center position. I have a feeling that that's going to be Agbadu's slot always when he's fit, and maybe if Jiga in future is needed, it might be in the place of Doc on that right-hand side as he gets more experience in the Premier League. But that's just my gut instinct. I don't know if you've had any thoughts about the long-term plan for Jiga.
I think it's obvious that he's going to be a long-term project. He's definitely not going to kind of slip into the team yet. Although I think Doherty's getting on a bit, and obviously centre back isn't what he's been playing his whole career. Although he has been fantastic since he's been there. He's really rejuvenated his Wolves career. But yeah, I agree. Agbadou, 100% central centre back, and he's been incredible since he's been here. Best player second half of the season so far, 100%. And then Totti on the left, he's been great since he's come back. I mean, it feels weird talking about a solid Wolves defence for once. I mean, you don't get to talk about it very often.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a few more clean sheets since Vitor's come in. Totti has been involved in all of the clean sheets that we've had. And it is great. And I think what's helping, though, is the consistency of the formation, because you spoke about Bueno even doing well, even though you're uncertain. I think even for someone like Bueno, the fact that before that 1 week it could be a 4 and then it could be a 3, and you never seemed to know who was playing alongside each other, because he seemed to chop and change who was in the formation all of the time. That can't be helpful. And when you're a centre-back, you need to understand, I think in any of the positions in the team, but it's particularly at centre-back, you need to know what the people alongside you are doing, what the routines are in terms of when you're in line and who's doing what and who's covering what. And so if you're constantly changing the personnel and the formation alongside that, it can't be helpful. And I just think having them always be in this, Vitor has a clear structure. You can see a bit like Nuno, if they're going to play in this way and they're going to do it week in, week out, no matter who we're playing pretty much. And that's got to be helpful for someone to just then, when there's one injury, like, yeah, Aga comes out, but sure, Bueno or Jiga or whoever it is can, because there's a couple more options now, can just come in and know exactly what they need to do because it's the same week in, week out. Again, I'm rambling and I'm going to ask you the same question. I don't know if I'm just talking like a madman, or does that make any sense?
No, I do agree, especially with the signings he's made. I think it's clear he has a vision of what he wants, with kind of getting more centre backs in to cover that 3-back role. And he's played it his whole career. He played, especially under Porto, winning the titles. He played 3-back. I think it was the 5 at the back, the 2 in midfield, and the 3 up top, with kind of Cunha on the left dropping in the pocket. And he's kept that the whole time. And it's obviously working, because now we're 5 points away from relegation. So really, even though I was sceptical when he came in, really pleased with how he's kind of structuring the team now. And it's much more solid, with all the clean sheets we're getting at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. Before we move on to any more like thoughts on the second half and just closing out with any afterthoughts, I will take a moment to remind you all out there that here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we did spend a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out the clear winner, with 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr. So, you know what made me so happy, James? Well, though, when we had all these subs coming on late to just close out the game, like we saw Doyle come on, even, who doesn't get as much, but apparently he is now training pretty much as a right winger or like a right-sided midfielder, because he's been told you're not going to get in that central two. So I feel like Tommy Doyle is the kind of guy who's gone, all right, tell me what I can do to get in the squad. Like, hands up, I want to be a professional, I want to play. And he's just like, okay, I'll play on the right wing then. And he seems to be, we saw at the end of Liverpool coming in late and putting a great ball for that opportunity that Minetsi got blocked at the last moment. We saw Sarabia come on, who actually did a really good long range effort. I thought that only just went over the bar. But the thing that made me so happy was we saw Pedro Lima. And he almost scored. I mean, Pedro Lima, finally. Do you feel my Pedro Lima love? I want to see more of this kid. And I feel like seeing him, again, we didn't see hide nor hair of him under O'Neill, apart from the one cup match, I think. And yet we've seen him a couple of times more recently under Pereira. And again, it's just a sign that he's using the squad and getting to know them. And rotating people. And just talk to me, tell me something about Pedro Lima, because I want to smile.
Yeah, I remember, was it Forest? He had his start, or am I thinking wrong game for Pedro Lima?
don't think it was Forest, but I haven't checked. I'd have to check.
Anyway,
I'm old. My memory's bad.
One of the games he first played, he looked fantastic, and I know he's young, and I know he come from the Brazilian second tier, so I mean you can't throw him into the Prem straight away. But he did look fantastic, and he did again against Bournemouth. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, how has this guy not been playing previously? Because he looks really good, like bombing forward. It's obvious he's going to be coming in maybe when Semedo's leaving, as there's been news around that. He looks great, comfortable on the ball. He happy to take shots from distance, and it wasn't a bad effort either. So
No.
I totally agree with you. I'm very excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, he looks nippy. I mean, the opportunity you spoke about where we've mentioned where he had the shot, it was a decent shot from range, I think. And he kind of made that opportunity. He nicked the ball off someone, drove 10, 15 yards and then had a pop, but there was runners around him. But it wasn't a bad shot at all, I don't think. And he made the goalie work. I mean, that's the main focus, right? Is get a shot on target, make the goalie work for it, if nothing else. And he did just that. And at that late stage of the game, when we want to be up their end of the pitch, that's taking their momentum off them. So I'm happy with that. And he's nippy and he wants to get a cross in. Obviously, maybe it needs a bit more. From what I've seen of him, he looks sharp, reasonably sharp defensively, but he's very slight. So maybe needs a bit more work on the man marking. But then being in a kind of back five or the wing back position is arguably again better for him. It was interesting to see that he came on for Aït-Nouri, but Semedo went to the left wing back position when he came on, and Pedro Lima went right wing back. So he's obviously a lot more right-sided, and Semedo covered the Aït-Nouri vacancy, just as a point of note to anyone who was unaware of that. But overall, like you say, I'm happy. 5 points clear of the drop zone because we had some good results go on from our perspective from the teams around us. Not that we want to be relying on that, but it all kind of went in our favour. Was there anything from the game that we didn't touch on, James, that you wanted to cover?
Oh, I don't think so. I think we've covered it all, really. I don't know if there's something that you want to talk about or...
I think the main thing I've mentioned is that I was just overall happy with the fact that it's another clean sheet. I mean, I would have liked us to get another goal, but we showed that we were creating more opportunities, even though but we were always looked fairly secure. We're looking a lot more stable, even without Aga, just as a unit. They're looking very cohesive. And overall, I was just really happy with as I mentioned, the man management of the coach actually making proactive substitutions to make sure that there was no wobbly moments of people potentially getting sent off, or just seeing it out in a classic go away from home, drum out a 1-0 victory and be professional. And that's what it came across as, because there wasn't necessarily as much silky football as we saw in the second half at Liverpool, but it was what needed to be done, and it never felt kind of too dangerous. So I'm happy. 5 points clear. The future is in our hands, James. The future is in our hands.
It totally is. I totally agree, yeah. 5 points adrift. It was a professional performance, that's what I'll say. We did exactly what we needed to, nothing more, nothing less. And yeah, it's good to see a secure team, and he's obviously really worked that team well. I think it's 8 points off Man United now as well. So and West Ham.
It's crazy.
If you would have told me that at the start of the season, I would have been like, "Oh, great!" But looking at it now,
yeah.
But yeah, I am chuffed with it. It was one of those games where if we won, it might be the point in the season where we go, yeah, we might be all right. And we've had a really tough run of games recently as well. So from here on, I think it's going to get a little bit easier fixture-wise. So, yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, we have a good run now just to sign off with. So obviously our next game is this Tuesday at home. First home game in a while, home to Fulham, which obviously they've had a pretty, I think by their standards, a pretty strong season. And they are they're definitely still a danger, but it's at home, and we've shown, I mean, we beat Villa and we've beaten Bournemouth, who are both pretty strong teams nowadays. So we've shown that is not a game to be afraid of. And with this form, if we can take it in there, then I'm up for another 3 points. I'll be honest. But then after that, obviously we've got Bournemouth away in the cup, and then at home to Everton, and away to Southampton in March. I mean, the next few games, they are huge in terms of points potential. We just can't throw it away now. We have to let's just hope that they can keep this momentum going.
Yeah, and I think the last 4 games are really going to G them up. I mean, the 3 wins against Blackburn, against Bournemouth yesterday, and Villa, and I mean, and a good performance against Liverpool. I think it is exactly what we need going into these kind of better run of fixtures. Fulham's going to be a tough one because they've had a couple of really good wins recently against Newcastle and Forest, but they did lose to Palace yesterday. But just need to kind of keep it going for a little bit longer, and then I think we'll be all right.
Yeah, fingers crossed we're on our way. All right, everyone. I think we have covered pretty much everything we need to cover for tonight. I hope everyone goes into this week, as this episode comes out, feeling rejuvenated, because it's always good to go into the new week off the back of a Wolves win. And hopefully we'll get another one on Tuesday. James, it's been amazing to have you back with me. It's been a long time and I missed your face. And just remember, everyone, that as the mighty Wolves have shown us again, people, out of darkness cometh light.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.